Welcome to Sales is Not a Dirty Word, the podcast that shows you how to convert 8 out of 10 sales conversations without acting like a douchebag. I'm your host, innovative sales coach Aleasha Bahr, the creator of the Black Sheep Sales Method, because if it's a fit, it's a fact, and there's no selling involved. If you're a service provider selling your own services who's ready to sell differently than the mainstream status quo and win more sales without pressure, pitching, or pretending to be someone else, then this is for you. If you want to know more about the Black Sheep Sales Method, go to Aleashabar.com. Okay, so today's episode is about this hairy in between in business where you're doing really well. And so you're thinking about scaling and bringing on a team, right? And so this is definitely coming from some client conversations I'm having who have sales teams that they're building out. And so a lot of times the thought is, oh, I have an offer. People are buying it. I'm starting to fill up. I'm almost sold out. I need to bring on a team, right? However, if you bring on a team in anticipation of growth, you feel pressure to sell more in order to make payroll. And that is a bad spot to be in. And it's a spot that I've seen many times because all of a sudden, there's this desperation coming through in your sales that prospects can feel. And you also start taking on nightmare clients while you're trying to train a team to be able to handle all of this client onboarding and management and whatever. And you're building out SOPs so it makes it easier and more streamlined to manage people and for them to do their job. And it's a lot happening at one time. And also, your profits go down because you have a team that you have to pay. Each sale has less profit. Now, you might increase the price of your offer as you bring on this team. However, there's pressure for more sales and you're scared because you've never sold it at this new price point, right? So, to talk this through, because you don't want to be overwhelmed and like crippled and unable to fulfill either, right? Usually, if you're selling a bunch and people are buying, you want to think about increasing your prices first before bringing on a team. Because a lot of times, the reason that something's selling so well is it's just the right price point or it's cheap enough that people can buy it. So, a lot of times people will say, oh, I don't have a sales problem, right? But they're actually just selling it so inexpensively that they don't need a strategy to communicate the value of it so that somebody buys it. And when you increase your prices, you are going to need a sales strategy that communicates the value. So it can be a little scary in that in between phase, like, oh, why aren't people buying it now? Because I'm selling it the same way I always have. It's just a different price. So this is a step that a lot of people miss, or maybe they don't even realize that they're underpriced, or they've heard they're underpriced. And so they just increase it, but then it doesn't sell. And they're like, oh, well, it wasn't underpriced. No, you just actually have to have a strategy around the communication of it for your audience in a way that lets them know what they're going to get out of the result of the solution that you're selling. And a lot of people just don't have that defined, especially if they are selling their own offer. If they're an expert who's selling and fulfilling, then they're getting into the weeds with people and forgetting about the result of all the deliverables that they have and instead just talking about all the deliverables included, which people don't want, right? They don't want reports. They don't want meetings. They don't want software. They want the results of all of those things. You have somebody to contact 24/7, so you're never stuck in a challenge and unable to solve it, right? You want to have these reports so that you know your money is being spent well and you know what's happening next and the results that we expect to see from it. So, a lot of people don't naturally communicate their offer that way, especially when they're the offer owner, right? So, instead, what's going to make this transition into scaling much easier is to increase the price point of your offer before you hire on anyone. And if you find that you're not able to sell it the same, then you need to bring on a sales strategist of some kind or a messaging expert or somebody like that to help you with that process and strategy. A lot of times there's things that need to be added before the phone call, like the educational elements, because you cannot sell and educate in the same call. You just don't have enough time to do it, and it's too much heavy lifting. So a lot of times it's things that need to be added before the call that are going to make it more likely to close at that higher price point, as well as what's happening inside of the sales conversation. However, you need to increase your prices first. And if you are selling it at that price point, great. You have more profits. And now it's not stressful to bring on someone to help you fulfill, right? So instead of focusing on bringing on a higher volume of people at the same lower price point, which is very stressful for fulfillment, and bringing on a team to support you in fulfilling when you've never brought on a team to support you in fulfilling before, so there's going to be lots of hiccups. That is going to be a whole lot of pressure that breaks a company. And a lot of times the owner finds that they're making less money than ever and they have more stress than ever because although they're not fulfilling for the client, they are managing a bunch of people. And leadership is one of the toughest things that I am still figuring out, you guys. Being able to manage someone and motivate them in a way where they are bought into the company as if it is theirs and they are loyal, because it's harder than ever. I mean, people just realize now that they don't have to have a job with somebody that they don't like, or in a company that they don't like or don't feel appreciated in, right? So they leave a lot faster than they used to. It used to be this old school mindset of like, you're lucky you have a job, and like, you're welcome that I gave you one, and I need you to show up and do this and do that. And I've never been that type of person. I'm definitely more of the type of person that's like, oh, I'm paying you. Sorry, can I ask you to do something? So I need to work on leadership from a different perspective, right? Where it's like holding people accountable and, taking actions to make sure that everything is performing the way that it should. However, it's really hard to figure that out when you haven't increased your price so you don't have more profits. So first, you want to have more clients at a higher price point, which means less clients overall. And then you can look at increasing that number of clients once you have dialed in how to bring them in at that higher price point. So you have the space to manage a team and bring them on, and you have the finances to manage a team and bring them on. And although it might be like a little stressful at that in-between spot where you're like, oh, I'm just fulfilling so much and I'm training these people, it is so much less stressful than feeling like you have to sell in order to make payroll, because you will bring on not ideal clients, you will burn out your fulfillment team, you'll burn out yourself, I promise. So there are definitely two schools of thought, and some people think you should bring on someone in anticipation of growth. I can tell you, I've never seen that work out well. So there might be somebody else who has a different story. Obviously, do whatever works best for you. But in my experience, you do not bring on in anticipation of growth because of the pressure it puts on everybody that is in the company right now. So anyway, to recap, you want to first increase the price of your offer. See if it's selling at that price point. If it's not, you want to develop a sales strategy around it, bring in some type of messaging specialist or something, and then bring on people who are going to help you fulfill. And although it will be a little hairy right there in the middle, it's going to be less hairy and more successful than putting pressure on your company to make more sales and take home less money while you manage more people. And figure out how this whole leadership thing works, because it is not natural, you guys. So if you would like some support in increasing your prices and communicating that value and bringing people in at a higher price point, and even how to structure the sales team and what to pay them and how to invest in generating more leads and all of those pieces, that's something that I support clients with all the time. So I build out the structure for a sales team, because I can tell you that a lot of times owners think they can just hire somebody and say, oh, look at my stuff, and then you figure out how to sell it because you're the expert, right? That's not my expertise. And that is a sure way for somebody to fail. So I can come in and set up the infrastructure that's going to allow a salesperson to sell from day one, because they are not going to be able to sell the way the offer owner sells. A lot of times they're like, watch my calls, but The offer owner has so much experience and knowledge from years of doing this that the salesperson's not going to have, and nor do they need to have in order to effectively bring on someone. It's actually probably hurting the owner's sales more than they realize, that they're bringing in all of that extra context that's unneeded. Sometimes it's the reason that they're selling, because your buyer's just like, oh, well, you clearly know what you're doing. So, I'm going to trust you. And the salesperson isn't going to have that tool, right? They're not going to seem like, oh, well, you just know what you're doing, so I'm going to trust you. They're also not the person who's fulfilling. So the person buying can't feel that same kind of confidence when they meet the owner and are like, oh, I love your vibe and I feel like you're going to take care of me, which is a lot of time how owners are so successful. So if you want to put in a process that is going to be more successful for the salesperson the first call they take, like they are going to close that first call, that is what I do. And I would book a sales level up call, which is listed in the show notes. And if you found this helpful or know somebody else who's in this hairy in between position, please like, review, and share it. I'm trying to get this message out to more people, and I would love to save people from the pain of that added pressure and that added payroll that I've seen so many times that trips companies up for literally years. So anyway, thank you so much for listening, and until next time.